All right, I'm looking into the Fibble. This is the game that's just like Wordle, but on every row, one of the clues is a lie. They're starting us with CREST. Um, actor would be interesting. The R would be the lie, and the yellow C and T would both be true. Let's go with actor. Okay, so, it's a little bit applicable with the theme of lying, and actor is sort of lying. I mean, for good reasons. They're pretending to be someone else. So, all right. Well, one of the C's is a lie. So there's definitely a T, and there's definitely no R. So, interesting. What if the C were the lie? What if we had something like this? That could be good. Catch, which the double C gives us good chances for contradictions. Let's go with that. Okay, see if we can catch the puzzle in a lie. Well, interesting. So, no contradictions. So if it was a CAT, we'd still be good. We just need new letters. Is there anything like that? Catan, like the settlers? I don't think that's an acceptable guess, but otherwise that would work. Yeah, I didn't think so. I mean, you've got to have another vowel. You could do like cacti, but that's not going to work. The T's got to be there. Okay, so if there is a C, then the AT have to be true. If there's a C anywhere, then this A and T have to be true. And you could put a C there. But then you need an E or an S. And we can't do an H at the end. We could do an E at the end, but what's that going to be? That's not going to be any good. I don't think that's going to work. I don't think there's going to be a C, actually, is what I'm thinking. So, if there's no C, what if we have the H be the lie and catch? Something like oath with the O and the H being the lie, but then what comes at the end? We can't do oaths because we can't do the C if there's, or the S if there's no C. Oathy, is that a word? No, I didn't think so. Okay, so what about HAT? We still need to have, the problem is if the A and the T are true, that makes them true and actor, and if there's no C, then the O has to be the lie. Okay, so there could be no A. The A could be the lie in actor and catch. If there's no A and there's no C, we would just need new letters then. Until? That'll work. Okay, until we know differently. That's what I will try. Okay, so again, no contradiction. I mean, the T is definitely third now, right? I mean, is there any way the T is not third? If that's the lie all three times, we know there is a T. We'd need an N and an L. There would be no C, so the T couldn't be last either. It would have to be something like, well, Talon. Oh, Talon? No, we can't do the O. Oh, if the T is lie, then there's no O or I. It would have to just be, and no U. So it would be T-A-L, and we'd have to have an N. It would have to be A-N. It would have to be that, which isn't a word. So that's not going to work. If the T was at the beginning, the T could be somewhere else. I think the T is third. I think there's no A. But, so if there's no E, O, or A, we have to have a U or an I. Loot, but we can only have one or the other. It would have to be like something like this or, huh. Well, maybe there is an A. Maybe the A is only the lie and catch. And it's true. I mean, we could have an O and an A. if we had like the A somewhere else. Something like this would work. We need an N or an L. Could we do... Oh, but we need an N. If we do the L last, then we need an N. I was going to say total, but if the L is the lie, then we need an N. Loat. Lotta. Lotta. That's a word. It's not the right answer, but it's a word. Okay, so... Okay, catch and Lotta. One of the A's is a lie. The T is definitely true. Okay. That T is true as well. We don't know that for sure. There could be two T's, but one of these two A's is a lie, definitely. If there were two T's, that would be a lie, and this would be a lie. Just, I guess, maybe possible. And in actor, one of the two, and Lotta, one of the two A's is a lie, so there's definitely no O. So if there's no C, then the A is the lie there. Maybe there's an A at the beginning? What about something like alter? No, because we can't do an R. Ooh, that almost works. All... A-L-T-E-R? No, we can't do the E. If there's a C, then the A-T is true. But I can go back to that. If I have a C... Okay, well, maybe, is there something like this? Cat... I either need... But I can't do a double T or else I need an L. So it can't be like catty. And I also need an N or an L. And I don't have any other vowels. Cat. It just doesn't work. If you do the C there and you don't have an H, and a C there isn't great. I don't think it's going to work to have a C, so I think that yellow A has to be the lie, which makes me think the A is at the beginning, but then the green A would have to be the lie in catch, and if there's no C, that means there's got to be an H. Could we do this? And then we need an L. No, that's not gonna work. So then I'm back to no A again. No A, the T is true. But there's no O. If there's no C, then there's no E. I need an I or a U. But the I or the U means I have to have an L and an N. Intel? No. Not... What? I don't know. This isn't making sense. Part of me says there's definitely no C, and we need to do an A at the beginning. And part of me thinks... What would come between the A and the T? And we need an L? But you can't do A-L-T. Or an N. But no, we need an L. We need an L because the A would be the lion lotus, so we need an L. And if you put the L at the end, you need an N. And L, so that doesn't work. So the L would have to be here. Aptly. Ugh. Wow. That should not have been that difficult, probably. But it's just, it's so weird. The PTL is a weird letter combination. Aptly. All right, well, I did not solve that very aptly, but we did get there in 5. So at least we, eventually catched up to the answer, I suppose. So let me know if, it took you a lot of guesses until you got there today, or if you got it figured out quickly. And of course, be sure to subscribe for more.